And we're back with Championship Game 15 predictions. Who would predict the Championship? Well, you know what? We're kind of good at it. Well, I am anyway. Don't know about my co-host, Mark Ryman. How are we getting on, Mark?
Yes, you do know about me. You know exactly how good I've been at predicting the Championship, and the answer is not very. But I still enjoy doing it every week.
I got 2 direct hits.
Yeah,
I smashed it this week.
Yeah, I got 3 correct. That's it. No direct hits. But, you know, you win some, you lose some. Or in my case, you lose some and you lose some more.
Well, it's all part of the fun, isn't it?
It certainly is.
Yeah, but before we dive into this, if you enjoy our Championship content, remember, like this video and subscribe for even more Championship content across our YouTube channel. Right, let's dive in. We have Watford versus Oxford United.
Yeah. So I think Oxford did brilliantly in their last game at home against Hull, particularly after the few results that came before it as well. And particularly considering they're playing a side that's just come off a 6-2 victory at Hillsborough as well. They're about to come up against that team. Hull, on the other hand, can't seem to win for love nor money, so we'll talk about them in a bit. I've got this as a draw. I find this really hard to call. So I've gone 1-1. Watford are at home, so I guess the odds will be in their favour for this game. But I think, Oxford away from home aren't as bad as some people might think they are, simply because their losses are usually very tight ones, with the Sunderland game being the exception. I've gone 1-1 for that.
Yeah. Snap. I've also gone 1-1. It's an interesting one though, because Watford are 4th in the home table, so they're good at home. But Oxford, if they turn up and they're like the Oxford that came up against Luton Town rather than the Oxford that played against Sunderland, I think they will run Watford close. So I feel they'll be up for it, especially tails up after the Hull game, and Hull are a team that like to dominate the ball. So I'm backing Oxford here to, leave the allotments with a point.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think it's going to be a bit of a stalemate.
Yeah. Right. On to formerly the most informed team in the division, Cardiff versus Blackburn Rovers.
I thought you were going to say against formerly the most informed home team in the division, Blackburn Rovers.
But they're playing away, so it doesn't really matter.
Well, they are, but they were playing at home last game and lost 2-0, which I certainly didn't see coming. So fair play to Stoke for that result. And based on that and Cardiff, because I think, although Luton did deserve to win the game, for me, there's no doubt about that. Cardiff going forward still showed some threat, and you can see, where that confidence is now in that team. I think they'll bully Blackburn in this game and win it 2-1.
Interesting. So I've gone the other way. I've gone for a 2-1 Blackburn away win, purely on the fact that after 3 back-to-back losses, I feel it's time for Blackburn to cut that bad run of form. I know it's not at home, but a bad run like that has to come to an end. It just has to. Although Cardiff really did impress me, especially in the first half, especially Ruben Colwill, seeing him in the flesh. What a player he is! What an athlete! He's ridiculous. It depends. He's big. Yeah. He is. He's a big boy.
He was up against Jordan Clark in that game as well, bless him. And Jordan Clark didn't know what hit him for the first 30 minutes. But
But Ruben Colwill tired. And that's the thing. Can Ruben Colwill go again? Because for Cardiff, everything seems to go through Ruben Colwill. He was dropping into holes and, doing cheeky little layoffs, getting involved in the play. But Ruben Colwill, by half time, he was knackered. And then this is a 3-game week. So will Ruben Colwill be able to go again? My guess is he won't be able to go again. And therefore Cardiff City will struggle because of that. And I feel he's been very instrumental in that crazy run they had, 16 points in 6 games. Ruben Colwill was at the coalface for all of those successes and wins and comebacks. He really was. But I think he's going to be absolutely knackered for this one. So, I have to back Blackburn Rovers.
I understand that. It's really difficult to predict, isn't it, on the third game of a 3-game week, because there will be changes in every single side. You just don't know who's going to be playing in these ones.
Well, that perfectly segues us to Middlesbrough versus Luton Town, because Luton's sort of signature is that there are no changes in the third game of the 3-game week. So how do you see this one?
Well, I think Borough fans would like to see that, particularly after the last third game in a 3-game week was away at Coventry. And although the score was close, I don't think the game was. I think there probably will be changes here. Both teams coming off a win. And although Luton only won by 1, I think they probably at least deserved a couple. Borough convincingly cruised past QPR, didn't they? And of course, if their attacking lineup is a bit more consistent, they can really put a run together. But as we've said in our preview, their home form isn't great and Luton's away form isn't great. And for that reason, I've gone for a draw, 1-1.
Yeah, interesting. So I have to preface this by saying I'm obviously very concerned about the abundance of riches in the Borough attack. You have to be a mug to not realise that up top, Middlesbrough are absolutely stacked. They got Conway starting at the moment. They got Latte Lath, who is really, he's a class player. He hasn't been so prolific this year. He hasn't been so clinical either. But, if you give him enough chances, he will grab a goal. So I've backed Middlesbrough to win 2-1 here. But that is a small part of, a superstitious me. And I guess we'll have to see about that. But it depends on how many changes Luton make. I worried that the changes Luton need to make are in the midfield, and I feel the changes that Luton will make won't be in midfield. But I'm prepared to eat humble pie over this. If Luton does make wholesale changes in midfield, brings in Nakamba, takes out Clark, brings in Baptiste, takes out Chong, then I feel there could be an upset on the cards here. But Luton away from home, I can only think of one win. And that was
it's
Millwall.
Just the young one. That was the Millwall game. Yeah, and only one other point apart from that, which was at Pompey, right?
Exactly. And other than that, the away performances, other than going down to 10 men against Portsmouth, they haven't really been that good. So, unfortunately, I do think Middlesbrough might snatch this, and then unless Luton have indeed turned a corner. But that remains to be seen.
Yeah, it certainly does. And you're right. Borough's attack on its day will cause any team in this league big problems. Yep.
Right, on to Stoke City versus the 1-0 specialist, Millwall.
Guess what I've gone for?
I bet you've gone for 1-0 Millwall.
I'd have. Millwall fans aren't going to be happy. I'm finally predicting them to win. The moment I said that they'd struggle and possibly go down this season, they've done nothing but win games to 0 after I talked about their defence being leaky. So, well done. They've been excellent, and another excellent result as well. I mean, they know how to hold on and keep clean sheets, which is exactly what we all expected from a Harris Millwall team at the start of the season. It just took a while for that sort of Millwall team to kind of come out, and we know they've got the players that can do that in players like Tanganga. So, great set of results. Stoke played very well in their last game as well. Winning away from home. So this was a tough one to call too, but based on Millwall's recent upturn in form and defensive prowess, I can't bet against them again, because there really isn't an agenda, I promise. So yeah, Stoke City 0, Millwall 1.
Ooh, so that's really interesting, because
ended the run.
Yeah, it could do. But Millwall's run's been fantastic.
Yeah.
Look, let's face it, Leeds absolutely battered them. Leeds are just not being clinical enough. But I had this game down as a 1-0 Millwall as well. But then I thought about it, and I thought, Stoke have actually been really impressive. Beating Derby, and Derby are no mugs, and then beating Blackburn, with Blackburn being at home. I thought, that's actually pretty decent. So I revised it, and I went Stoke 4, Millwall 1. I know. I'm
Did
going
you revise it after a few drinks?
So
1-0 to 4-1.
I went on the basis. Millwall have won 4 games back to back, 1-0, 1-0, 1-0. So I feel it's like buses. Goals conceded are like buses. You know, you wait a long time for one to come, and then 4 come along at once. So I feel, you know, Stoke, they're pretty good, but there's really not much between like 4th in the Championship and 20th or 21st. Like it's crazy when you look at the it's absolutely mad.
I remember when we were talking about Cardiff beating Norwich, and looking at the table at that point, and I think Cardiff then, and still will be, 3 points behind Norwich, which when you think about how I certainly have viewed their season so far and how differently I've viewed them, I know that Cardiff had an upturn in form and Norwich have just gone from being world beaters to can't score for love nor money, but it's incredible how close it is.
Yeah, that's what makes it the best league, because literally anyone can beat anyone, as shown by Millwall yesterday against Leeds. It's a fantastic league, but I just feel this might be a game too far for Millwall. And we've seen before, Stoke have previous, you know, they will go to a team and just absolutely batter them out of nowhere. So, you know, just ask Pompey. Yeah, so that's why I've gone that way. Right, on to Derby County versus Plymouth.
Yeah, so another one I found difficult to predict. I certainly didn't see the Derby result come in away at Cov. Cov just started to pick up form, and of course it's the last game with Mark Robbins in charge, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, when we preview that game. So what a result for them to get a 2-1, or they were 2-0 up in that game, weren't they? And then Plymouth, again, with a tidy 1-0 win as well. But I think Derby at home, we're talking about home form, Derby at home are up there as well. And Plymouth don't tend to travel quite as well. So for that reason, tight, but Derby 2, Plymouth 1.
Derby are indeed up there for home form. They're 9th in the home table. And Plymouth, they've had a little bit of a wobble, haven't they? I've gone Derby 2, Plymouth 0. That is not to say that Wayne Rooney is a bad manager. They're certainly not cut adrift, not like QPR and Pompey at the moment. Although a couple of results would upturn those teams' fortunes. But Plymouth, you know, since the Luton result, they've had a little bit of a downturn. Good result for them though, you know, against Portsmouth. Vital to beat the teams around you. No one was expecting Plymouth to really make a playoff push anyway, so it is a case of, you know, they just got to be above the dotted line come the end of the season, keep in touch with the teams directly above them, which they are doing. But Derby, I feel at home, they're solid at home. Like, I will hold my hands up. I'll apologise to Derby fans. I've been very surprised with Derby this season. So 2-0 at Pride Park.
I think Derby fans have been surprised as well. I mean, even before the season started, there were quite a lot of people calling for Paul Warne to go before the season started. You know, they were. And, you know, I think a fair few of those are going to be eating their words with how well they've done. I've been really, really impressed with them and surprised, definitely. So, yeah, a complete agreement on that one.
Yeah. And on to Leeds United versus QPR.
Look, I know the Championship's unpredictable, and the moment I say this, you know, QPR will probably turn out winners. And Leeds haven't had the easiest of times, but QPR have been currently stinking out the division. They got absolutely battered by Borough midweek, and they look like a team bang in trouble. I know we said this about Cardiff, and then look what happened. So, you know, these things happen. But I would be very surprised if anyone bet on them to win. Leeds 3, QPR 0, and I think I'm being quite conservative with that.
You're being very conservative. I'm not going to predict more for Leeds. I've got Leeds 2, QPR 0, and I think it is at this point where that Luton turnaround is the only thing that's kept Marty Cifuentes in the job. Because I know someone that was at the QPR Middlesbrough game, and he said, I don't know how QPR are in this division. And I said to him, well, you know, that QPR beat Luton, that we're the only win they've had this season. It's crazy to think that. And I actually predicted 2 game weeks ago that Sunderland would absolutely destroy QPR, so much so I even made it my lock of the week. And then it was 0-0, which and QPR were the better team in that game as well, which is mad. But I can't see past Leeds for this game. But they got to start putting teams to the swords, all huff, no puff. And it's mad. Like with the Millwall game, all that pressure. It's kind of like a Scott Parker Burnley team. Yeah. All that pressure, but ultimately nothing up top. Or they score a goal and then they just go back into their shell. They need to go for the jugular, need to put games to bed. But yeah. So for that reason, I've gone even more conservative than you, just 2-0.
Yeah, and I get that. I think that, there is a pressure at Leeds. There always was going to be. They were never going to walk the league. No team does that usually in the Championship, even though they've got such a good squad. But yeah, Farke will be feeling some pressure now, definitely. He needs to put these games to bed. QPR, on the other hand, we were talking about Luton saving Marti Cifuentes' job. I mean, how has it got to this point? He was so good for them last season, and I would argue they've probably got a stronger squad now than they did then. So I'm certainly going forward. So what's happened? I mean, QPR fans, feel free to put stuff in the comments. I think the Luton game is not a local derby, but it's a second place for Luton fans anyway to Watford. I think neither team particularly like each other, so there might be a bit of that involved in the reasoning behind it as well. And they played each other the week previous as well, and they won that too. But yeah, what's gone wrong? It's a real surprise.
It's mad. I didn't expect them at this, place in the table, like 14 games in. And it's not even like they're in the pack of teams like between 15 and 18 points. They're beginning to get cut adrift. They're on 10 points. It's concerning. It is concerning for QPR fans right now. But on to Norwich versus Bristol City.
Yeah, another concern. The moment we start waxing lyrical about Norwich, look what happens.
How are they 12th?
Oh, exactly. Well, they didn't start. Well, the reason, I suppose, is they didn't start very well. And they haven't done very well recently. And that the bit where they did very well, they did really well, and it stands out. I think it's not quite recency bias, is it? Because recently they've done quite poorly, but you think of the games that they've absolutely hammered teams, and you think of people like Borja Sainz and the goals that he's scored. But actually, when you look at the results that they've got in the league, their sort of good form has been sandwiched by 2 pretty poor areas. And, they have got injuries. It's worth saying they have got injuries, and that does make a difference. Their goalkeeper is not helping them whatsoever. I don't know whether Gunn is back, but yeah, that will make it. I think will make a bit of a difference here. However, just based on form, I've gone Bristol City to win it 2-1 away from home. I think that Carrow Road doesn't look quite the scary proposition it might have done a couple of weeks ago. So that's the reason why I've got it. I know that Bristol City lost their last game against a good Sheffield United team who turned it around, but I still think they've got that togetherness that could be the undoing of Norwich in this one.
Yeah. So I've got Norwich 1, Bristol City 0. Looking at Norwich's last 5 games, 3 draws, 2 losses.
Yeah.
I just feel it's got to, Hotharup has to cut that poor form. It has to be done now. Obviously, there's no Josh Sargent. They still have Borja Sainz, who, what a player, running out of things to say about him each week. And Bristol City, obviously they're in better form. It's 11th versus 12th this week. It's a weird one. It could go either way, to be honest. It really could. Is this a derby because it's East Coast versus West Coast?
Don't start this again. We got enough of that last time. And actually, on that note, can I point out that if you can direct your anger of geography towards Ollie, as he asked if it was a derby, and I said no. This is Ollie. This is probably the 2 furthest parts away from each other in the country. It's not a derby now.
Yeah, it can be it could be the two furthest parts away from each other derby then.
Oh yeah. That's the one, is it? Right. Okay.
East Coast versus West Coast. But I feel, Bristol City, it's going to be tough going to Norwich. Remember, Norwich are like unbeaten at home for like a billion years. Not a billion years, but it definitely goes back like maybe a season and a half. Someone in the comments can correct me. I don't have the figure off the top of my head, but Norwich are decent at home. Like they might not win all their games at home, but they definitely don't lose at home. So I think home advantage. Delia Smith, yelling at the players on the pitch, "Let's be having you." I just see it being a Norwich win. That's all really.
Yeah, we'll see.
Right, on to the P team derby. It's Portsmouth versus Preston North End.
You're not going to let this go. You're just up there to annoy everybody. Well, Preston were involved in the last derby game, of course, against Sunderland, weren't they?
The North derby.
The country gets skinnier further up derby. Oh, God. Both teams... obviously Preston drew, which against Sunderland is a really good result, and Portsmouth just again struggling, aren't they? Really struggling. Based on Portsmouth's form more than Preston's, I think I'm going to go with a 1-0 Preston win. Preston have looked good in patches this season. In other patches, they've looked completely toothless. Portsmouth, on the other hand, just haven't been able to really get a run together. They've got the odd result here and there, but they're really struggling. So, yeah, for that reason, I've gone for a tight 1-0 to Preston.
Okay, yeah. So I've also gone for Preston to win. I've gone Portsmouth 1, Preston 2. It's a real shame because I like Pompey and they've looked good in patches, but they just can't get the wins. Yeah. They were doing well grinding out the draws. And Preston... it feels they were doing really well, grinding out those draws. But then I look at the table, they're 20th. It's mad because I feel they have been doing really well. But then you look at the table, and yes, it is a table where pretty much half the division are within 3 points of each other, and one win can just put you mid-table. 100%. It's insane. But I feel Preston, and especially Woodman, who's been playing out of his skin, his numbers against Sunderland were mad. And Preston looks really good against Sunderland as well. But I feel this is going to be an away win for them.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think their unbeaten run for Preston was mostly draws. So I think that's part of the reason why, again, it sort of creates almost a false narrative of where they are and where they should be. But it is so tight, you're right.
It is. Right, and onto the team that Preston drew against. So that's kind of a derby as well. Sunderland in the drawn against derby. Sunderland versus Coventry.
Yeah, I can't see past Sunderland winning at home, and particularly against a Coventry side who rewarded Mark Robins for turning a corner with them by sacking him. I am absolutely bereft, bemused. I don't get it at all. I mean, I think Coventry fans, I'd say 90% of them will be absolutely furious about this decision. It makes no
higher
sense.
Than 90%.
Yeah,
I think
probably.
You want to go higher than 90%.
Yeah, you're probably right. But I mean, yes, of course, it was a disappointing result against Derby, but Derby, as we've said, are not a pushover. Coventry at home, their form hasn't been brilliant, but they are starting to pick up results. Their forward players starting to score goals, and they had a manager in Mark Robins that nearly every neutral and Coventry fan probably see as up there as the best manager in the league, there or thereabouts. Beyond me, there's no new or lack of manager bounce for this game at all. I think they get punished, and against Sunderland away from home, you can't think of a harder place to go under those circumstances. So I think I've been quite conservative. I've gone 2-1 Sunderland.
Interesting. I've gone Coventry 1, Sunderland 0 here. I was absolutely shocked when I heard the Robins news. Like everyone else, I think I messaged you and you're in the middle of your work day and I said Robins has been sacked and you were like, what?
Just can't believe it.
No. Yeah, absolutely mad. It's not just Cov fans that are rightly furious, it's football fans worldwide really that are furious, because he not only turned a corner for the club, he put them on his back and marched them up the hill almost to the Premier League. It's mad the job that he did when you actually look at it, taking them from League Two to within one kick of the Premier League.
It's incredible the job he did. And he also showed how well equipped he was to lead them into the Premier League as well. I think every time they've faced a Premier League opponent, they've been the better side, including that Manchester United game in the FA Cup last season. Absolutely. And coming from 3-0 down against, a top 6 Premier League side. Yeah. I mean, it shows his quality and how he can tactically set up a team at the very highest level. It's very short-sighted for me. It's and incredibly damaging. And you look at, and no offence, but you look at the list of managers on the betting sites of who might replace him, and not one of them holds a candle to Mark Robins. So I don't get it. Let's see what happens, I guess.
Yeah, it was reported that Matt Bloomfield was on the list.
Yeah, he's done well at Wickham, but I mean, there's apples and oranges. Yeah. It's crazy, absolutely crazy.
I feel for whoever takes over after Mark Robins, it's a hard act to follow.
Impossible, especially when the crowd are this upset about it in the first place. Because that will unfairly be directed on whoever then steps in, walks through the door afterwards.
I don't even know who's taking over on an interim basis, but I feel the players might take it upon themselves, because they'll feel like they are the ones that messed up in getting Robins fired. So I reckon they respond with a win there. So that's why I back Cov away from home. Plus, remember, Sunderland haven't had the best run of form recently. No. Not even the best performances, and that goes back to my video, will Sunderland run out of steam, which got Sunderland fans so aggrieved. I'm not saying they're a bad team, I'm just saying this happens too late. In football. Too late.
No, I agree they haven't been great, but I think this says more about Coventry than Sunderland for me. I think that Sunderland at home is still strong, and I think Coventry, I think, will be all over the place in this game. But who knows? We'll see.
I think siege mentality, and we'll see. Siege mentality is very powerful. Right. On to, I don't know if this one's a derby, Sheffield United versus Sheffield Wednesday.
Yeah, we finally got to the derby. Well done. Yeah, it gives it away when it's the first word, isn't it? Now, it is a derby, so the whole cliche that form goes out the window, I don't know whether it does. When you look at statistics, I don't think that's always true. I know it's a bit of a cliche. I'm just going to keep predicting Sheffield United to win 2-0 at home, because that's what they seem to do all the time. Sheffield Wednesday as well. I can't see them getting past this Sheffield United team. Yes, I know it's a derby, and yes, I know that Sheffield Wednesday will be absolutely bang up for it, particularly considering their last result and how good it was. And it was great. I just can't see past Sheffield United. So I've gone 2-0 Sheffield United for this one.
So form and 2-0 wins, regardless of home or away, go out the window for a derby. I've gone 1-1. Because, anything can happen in the Steel City derby. It's one of the best derbies out there. So I think we're going to be seeing a Danny Roll masterclass TM trademark. We say it enough, don't we?
Yeah, you didn't say that before the Watford game, did you?
No, I didn't.
No, that's good. That's good. Well, at least we're not jinxing them then. Yeah, you might be right. It's hard to predict, isn't it? But I still think if I just look at the actual teams on paper and how good Sheffield United's defence is, I find it hard not to predict them to win this game. Yeah.
Right, on to Hull City versus West Brom, which is a tough one because of the game weeks. We've had to record this before West Brom Burnley. So I predicted 0-0 for Burnley West Brom. It's going to be 0-0, right?
It's a draw, right? Okay, so it's 0-0. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's got to be 0-0. I don't know whether I'm just bored of predicting draws. I've predicted West Brom to win this, I think, which is mad because they both draw or Hull draw and lose, and neither team have won in about 25 years. But West Brom, I think, away from home, they've they've got the players to finally. It's got to break at some point, hasn't it? They've got to win a game at some point. I don't think they'll beat Burnley tonight, as we record on a Thursday. So for that reason, I think it's where it comes here. Hull, obviously, the news of Zambrano being done, which I think we all saw coming. Everyone saw that in the first place, which sort of begs the question why they signed him in the first place. Anyway, question for another day, but that's a big player missing for them. Managers under pressure there. It's got to be under pressure when you think about, Rosenior's job that he did. And I do accept, because I was having a chat with someone about this, and I do accept, players like Philogene, for example, leaving is almost impossibility to replace. You look, he comes on, he makes the difference for Villa. Delap for Ipswich has been excellent in the Premier League for a struggling side. So I do get that they've got to have players in, but they've had to replace extremely good players. So I get that argument, but I think that the owners are going to be very impatient. I certainly don't see. I just don't see it staying the way it is without a change in manager. But anyway, for this game, I think it's going to be a 1-0 to West Brom.
Ditto. I echo every single word that you said. I've also gone 1-0 West Brom. I think they'll stop the rot, even if it doesn't happen against Burnley tonight. I do think that Tim Walter will be the next manager to go, because where they're at, even with the table being as tight as it is and as close to the playoffs as they might be, just by the benefit of the table being so tight, I don't think what they've seen, considering how much they've backed him, it's not good enough. It really isn't good enough. And Rossini is doing a great job in France. He's showing what a young, talented manager he is. Like, sacking him was mad, and they should have backed him instead of sacked him. Yeah. That's my thought on it. And now they're going to pay the price, because I don't know if you saw it as well. Tan Kessler, like the technical director at Hull, he got booted out of the club as well after a falling out with the owner.
Yeah,
and he got a one-line press release. Tan Kessler has left the club. We will let you know about future developments. And he's the guy that was like, deciding where to spend the money. He was probably important in hiring the manager. Hull, I don't know. It's very concerning for Hull. It really is.
It is. And it just shows you that, money isn't everything. Ownership with money does not guarantee success. It really doesn't. And it looks like this owner is got lots of money, but he's also a little bit of a nutter.
Wise words. I should get that tattooed on my lower back.
Tramp stamp.
Yeah, exactly. Right, and on to Burnley versus Swansea. I've gone for a Burnley 1-0 here, purely based on the fact like Swansea don't concede many, don't score many, but I think Burnley are going to have a lot of pressure here. Or maybe they'll suck up the pressure and then hit Swansea on the counter. I don't actually know how this game could even go.
No, I don't either. I've gone for a Swansea 2-1 win. Obviously, we haven't seen the Burnley game, as we just said, but we're both assuming it's going to be a draw. Swansea obviously beat Watford at home after Watford won 6-2, so great result for them during the week. I know it's at home and Watford are away, but still, good result for them. Yeah, I don't know. It's make or break a bit, isn't it? The next few games, I think, for Scott Parker. I don't think he'll go, but I do think that it will start adding fan pressure, particularly if we keep seeing these sort of tight losses and draws. They really do need to start picking up some form. As I said in the previous pod, we know there's lots of injuries there, but they have got huge depth of squad and arguably should be doing better with the players they've got. Yeah, who knows? Swansea are a good side on their day. Away at Turf Moor's tough, but yeah, I've gone for 2-1 just to mix up a bit.
Yeah, it's mad because Burnley, having only lost twice this season, yet the fans are sort of getting on his back about it, even with the injuries. But yeah, as you say, big squad. I don't understand how fans can put that much pressure on it. Like, how entitled can you be? Like, Burnley fans, if you're watching, please let us know in the comments why.
How entitled are you?
Just let us know why you think this when it could be so much worse, especially as they're not even in the tight, constricted part of the Championship. They're sort of above the folds. It's from Millwall down that's very tight. It's mad considering they conceded 6 goals. Like, looking down the list, that's the fewest amount of goals conceded in the Championship this season.
Do you know what? I actually think if they started the season like this, there wouldn't be that pressure, because I think after the terrible season they had in the Premier League under Vince and company, and the entire kind of reshuffle of the squad, the players that left, players that came in, I think most fans would be fine. I think it's the fact that he's almost created a rod for his own back by winning games by 4 and 5 at the start and absolutely playing teams off the park, swashbuckling football. It sets the expectation and precedent that they had a couple of seasons ago. And I think it's probably a little bit a result of that, whereas actually things are now more level to where we expected them to be anyway.
Yeah, Scott Parker masterclass on a weekly basis, serving up a bowl of mediocrity with a lot of pressure.
Second, though. You'll finish second. Don't worry about it. That's what happens.
They'll be up there. They will. They're hard to beat regardless. But let us know in the comments what your predictions are. We're going to list all the games in the comments. So just copy, paste, and put your score predictions in there. We love to see them. And thank you for watching. Remember to like the video and subscribe for even more Championship content. We don't always get the predictions right, but we have a good time with them. And when we do get them right, we have a good time with them. And we don't rub each other's faces in it.
Well, not on camera.
No, not on camera. It's mostly over WhatsApp. But wherever you are watching this, have a great week and enjoy the game week.